Okay, I'd like to call the October 27th, 2011 Black Bear TIFF meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the August 25th minutes. And did everybody get a copy of those?
I was absent, so
You were absent.
I would abstain.
Lionel, did you get a copy of those minutes?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Vote to
All right.
make a motion.
I'll second that.
I'll abstain from voting.
Abstain. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Say again?
Okay, so the minutes have been approved. Agenda item number 2, update on information regarding the Newfields Railroad Bridge from the DOT. And we just got this as we come in today. Do we want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure.
Ed?
Several months ago, Mr. Badger and I met with representatives from the Department of Transportation, specifically Nancy Mayville and several of her associates, to talk about the possibility of obtaining from them an estimate as to upgrading the railroad bridge that is in Newfields on New Road into Newmarket. It's obviously taken several months for them to do, but what they have provided is that their estimate for engineering right-of-way, bridge and road construction would be $840,000. This Phil. They sent a quick preliminary report, which I emailed to all the members, and they followed up with a more lengthy letter that talks about the state, the federal and state bridge aid program, which basically reimburses the town 80% of the cost of the bridge, with the municipal share being the other 20%. Where this bridge is in Newfields, the Newfields selectmen also received a copy of the letter, and I was contacted by one of the selectmen today asking to talk about this because they're fairly excited about the fact that there is an estimate for the bridge, and they're looking to do a lot of work in that area and would like to see about the opportunity of having that bridge rehabbed. In addition, as we all know, there is a developer, Mr. Mark Stevens, who has an obligation by a contract, an agreement with the town to provide access to Black Bear TIFF. And as we all know, there is potential foreclosure action against the Ham property that Shearwater owns at the present time. I have yet to approach Mr. Stevens and talk with him about this, but this would be a way of him satisfying his obligation to undertake what would be the upgrade of this bridge in order to make the reality happen of access to Black Bear TIFF at that point. So.
You're talking the 20% remaining?
Yes. Because the balance,
Yep.
the 80% will come from the state. Now, one of the things, if you notice on the piece of paper that I faxed, or that I emailed because of the receipt that I have, says that the estimate is for 2019. Just need to have some further conversation with the folks at DOT. That, my understanding is that's when they would be willing to reimburse the town. I know that, or the developer, whoever it may be. When Mr. Badger and I met with Nancy, they noted that on several occasions, communities have opted to front the entire amount in order to get the bridges that they have within their communities upgraded. And then at a later date, obviously 2019, when the money was available, they were reimbursed for that cost. Again, that would be a matter of going to the individual and saying, here's a program that would reimburse you for your expenses beyond what you're obligated to pay. So.
I briefly read through the beginning of this today, and one of the things that stuck out to me was the conversations that were had with Newfields in 2001, 2004, and you know, upon completion, the DOT would anticipate that the owner it'd be maintained by the municipality.
Yep.
I guess my question with that is, you know, what types of maintenance costs are expected for something like this? Is that something we can ask them to kind of get an idea?
Yes.
Just curious. I'm not familiar with bridges and. And the other thing I noticed on here was the potential for it to be an historic bridge. And what does that entail? If you look at the second page, the one that was emailed, it says potentially historic due to age. Is there any? I do a lot of historic committees, and I know it can be a pain sometimes to get something through.
That I don't know, but I can ask that question.
If there's any historic. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. Some time ago, when we were talking with Mr. Stevens, and we were dealing with Boise Cascade, and back in those days, the estimate for the railroad crossing at the end of Forbes Road was somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, or something in that range, as I'm doing this from memory now.
Yep.
So and to me, that establishes the obligation of Mr. Stevens to provide access to the Black Bear. And since this bridge conveniently comes in somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, why wouldn't he be obligated to upgrade the bridge to satisfy his responsibilities and obligations?
That's my feeling, is that it would be best for him to take ownership, fulfill the obligation, whether he was spending $750 or $1 million there or $850 here, and do the bridge. If he wanted to make application for the Brid Age program to get reimbursed, I mean, that'd be up to him, but, you know, I mean, he satisfies the requirement, and there isn't the hassle of the railroad saying that it was going to impede, you know, the Downeaster and stuff, so.
I mean, theoretically, he could stand in for the town of Newmarket and do the bridge now, and then patiently wait for reimbursement in 2019.
Yep.
So is there some reason why we shouldn't
Move him in that direction?
move in that direction?
There's no reason at all. In fact, that's what when I was going to talk with him, is hand him this document and say, for $840,000, you can provide access, and the town will be satisfied, and foreclosure actions would cease at that point. Because it'd make his land more valuable, you know, if there's access to that area. As I mentioned, you know, Newfields is interested in, you know, doing some work, and they've talked. I know one time when I talked with them, they were talking about reconfiguring that area. They also see the benefit of you know, it provides the emergency operations, emergency equipment to use that bridge in both directions. If there's something that happens at the crossing here or somewhere on 108 that prevents traffic from flowing.
So is that something that you need you need a motion from the Black Bear Committee to move forward on that? Or is that something that you're going to pursue?
That was something I was
as
going
part
to
of the
pursue, 'cause
process?
I talked with legal relative to, you know, how to do it, and he suggested going over and having a sit-down conversation with him and presenting him what the report says, and sort of gauge his interest in wanting to move forward on that regard.
Okay. So at this point, you don't feel you need any
If someone wants to
direction
tag along, it'd be great.
I mean, is this aid only for municipalities, or can it work with a person?
That was to be something, I think that primarily it's for municipalities. But I think that, I know that the interest that both Mr. Badger and I had when we went there was, can we get an estimate of what it would cost to upgrade that bridge? Because if it's significantly less than putting in a railroad crossing, then, and that's what the results have, then it makes it more attractive for him to do that as opposed to spinning his wheels and saying, the railroad company isn't going to let me put in a railroad crossing. So.
Are there any plans for that area, what they're doing out on 108 there? Is there any, as far as what Newfield's interest would be in this?
Well, I think that part of what Newfields has is would like to have additional economic development happen in their community. And when I talked with one of the selectmen, he says, Newmarket's interested in developing its park. We're interested in bringing additional commercial activity. It benefits both if we can make this happen. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'd like to kind of clarify some stuff on this on this thing. When Al Dixon was in and this was originally proposed, this thing went all the way up to the crossing in Newmarket.
Yep.
And first of all, I'd like to say that from my perspective, Newfield should be more involved with this thing because, like you said, they have a lot of interest on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
They should be talking to us a lot right now, in my opinion. But getting back to what I was talking about with when this was originally proposed, when Black Bear was put in, the northern entry at that time there was talk of it going on the east side of the railroad and coming out. In fact, that's why that building was bought on the other side of the tracks, was to get it up there. I'm not saying that this has to work. I'm just throwing out some thoughts.
Yep.
But in any event, if it's being contemplated that we can't put anything on New Road, we're going to have a terminal, not a terminal, but an exit on the far side, meaning the bridge. And that's what we got for that. You might as well close it up because nothing's going to happen. In other words, there's got to be a place for that. Once you get in there, if you're going to get in and have to go back out, it kind of screws things up, don't you think? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
In other words, if we could have a road right through the thing, or...
What would you think would be better, the crossing at Forbes Road, or have something
Well, the
just
thing is,
past
that
the
there's just so many
bridge?
things that have been proposed, and, I mean, nothing is... It's just like that bridge, There's actually a place you could put an at-grade crossing down below. See, Newfields wants to put a light in to get rid of the end of New Road, and that's why they should be a substantial part of the discussion on this thing, at least from my perspective. And just east of the bridge, there's a place there you could get over it. I discussed that with you briefly. I think there's probably one train a day, one train a week rather, and I don't have the exact figures, but it goes from the bridge towards the bay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if that many.
If that many. Yeah. I think the only thing it serves is that gas plant near Lowe's up in Greenland, and I think it's dead there. So,
It also brings lumber cars. I see lumber cars going up to Boise Cascades warehouse
up by the bridge.
Up by the
Okay,
bridge,
I wasn't
yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah.
But in any event, there's very few, and they go through there about 5 or 10 miles an hour, so it's the road bed is rather poor. But in any event, I don't know how much all of this would cost, and I think it's something that obviously has to be thought about and put forth. But, you know, it would appear to me that you've got 300 acres there to fool with for the future. It's a big piece of land and it's good property. It's, you know, it's not all, there's two brooks that emanate on that property, but the land adjacent to the brooks is very sharp banked. In other words, it's not a swamp, if you know it. There's a lot of very good highland in that property. But like I say, if we're looking at the bridge to be the conduit into this parcel through the, what's his name, Wilson Farm there, I don't know. It just seems it's whistling in the dark, so to speak. But
So you feel that there should be an entrance, two entrances in?
well, an in and an out, basically. It's a big piece of land. Someday that's probably going to be a major street through there. That's what I would think. In other words, you've got Route 108, you've got New Road. If you're saying there's no going on New Road, you've got 108. You know, it's at least something that should be thought about, and this is the time to be thinking about it, I think.
Well, one of the things that at the last meeting was discussion of the possibility of hiring a consultant to, you know, look at and give some options as to potential layout of the plan of the entire district. So that may
See,
be
that
something.
could even be a, you know, something that would not replace 108, but really it you know, it would be another way of running that traffic.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking 50 years down the road, that's going to be a heavy, you know, that there's not a lot of place to do much there.
Yep.
But anyway, those are my thoughts.
Anything else? I guess, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my question is, so what exactly are the next steps with this?
Well, I guess we're going to talk to Stevens,
Yes.
find out, you know, gauge his interest, and come up with a plan after that, I guess. Is that my understanding?
Put back and
Yep.
see what kind of response we're getting from him on that.
This,
And you know, as I said, the Newfield Selectmen have asked me to come in and they're interested in wanting to see this, and I just want to try to proactive as to how can we, you know, help with that regard. It is in their community, so they're the ones that, if it was done and they wanted the bridge aid, then they would be the ones to front the money for it.
Yeah, and I would agree with Mr. Lamont. That Newfield should have a very active role in
Yep.
this. It's in the town of
Yep.
Newfield.
as far as that, the cost of that 840,000, how much is that going to cost the town? In other words, that, from what I see in there, most of that's going to be paid by the state?
Yeah, 20, it says 20%, about 168,000.
So that's all the town's going to be on the hook for?
Mhm. Or the developer,
For the developer.
not necessarily the town. My last question is, do the life safety issues play any role in this as far as, you know, the need for this to happen, where there's no access for the trucks, fire trucks in that area?
You know, Chief Mulaski would be the best person to ask that question. I think that, you know, what happens is they tend to, if they are coming, they meaning Newfields or Newmarket, having to go up there. If they can't get through 108, Ash Swamp Road is the next available road that they use to.
I think maybe having some of that information might benefit, you know, if this becomes an option that we have to proceed with.
As far as Newfields is concerned, see, they're looking for a way to get a traffic light up there. And I know they are, because they want to go through my property to get there, Newfields. But like I say, you know, if we're making plans here, and nothing's working together, something's gonna come up screwed up. In other words, that, where you saw the surveyors there. That's where they have asked me if somehow they could make that. You know, didn't ask me, but they would like to get that, a traffic light at the terminus of New Road. Because they, you know, there's gonna be some accidents there. There have been quite a few. It's gonna get worse.
Okay.
But again, at this point, see, Jimmy Daly, who owns the property adjacent to me, that abuts the railroad, I think that he would look with favor on doing something there, or helping with something to get to that traffic light that's gonna be going through that lot that I'm developing, if it ever happens. And like I say, that gets you to the railroad on the lower side.
Mhm.
And then Gahan's house is there, one of those. And again, I'm just throwing out ideas, you understand, something else to think about.
Yep.
Maybe what I'm saying, you know, makes no sense, but to me it does. You know, instead of, in other words, that if you're bringing the entry through Charlie Johnson's place, that's possible, but maybe there's a better way of doing it.
Mhm.
Anything else? Move on. Okay. Agenda item number 3. Update on Mark Stevens providing crossing into Blackburn. I think we've kind of talked about what we're going to do as far as talking with Stevens.
Yep.
And you'll report back to us.
What is the status, Ed, as,
At this point in time, the auction is, or the foreclosure action and the auction would take place, I believe it's November. I think it's one of the first 2 weeks of November, I think sometime between the 7th and the 10th. That's when the foreclosure and the sale would take place. So, and then go from there, so.
Okay. All right. And number 4, any other business?
Can I ask a couple questions at this point, or?
There's no public comment on the agenda tonight. Or anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed?